don't know.
Ready?
You're on.
Ooh! All right, here we are. We're back Wednesday, midweek. It's cold, so we went to tea time early today. It's chilly, windy, cold in here in the kitchen. So tea and baking. What do I have for you today? Today I have for you rhubarb, which is this very weird vegetable that's treated more like a fruit. It's a very early spring crop, and it's put so often in pies that it's called the fruit vegetable, but it's actually a perennial rhizome that I have a bunch of it out in the backyard. I cut this up. One thing that I want to say about it is that it's usually these stalks, pink stalks, that are grown on these big, huge leaves. These are poisonous. And I'm going to tell you a funny story, because a couple years ago, I had so much of it that I took the stalks into the restaurant and I made like a rhubarb brown betty for dessert. And then I wanted to do something with the leaves. I was thinking about wrapping them around fish and poaching them. Well, on a hunch, I looked it up. Thank God I looked it up. These are poisonous. So do not eat the leaves. They're poisonous if you eat them. They're not poisonous if you touch them. They're poisonous if you eat them. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, because I also, when I was researching it today, found out something else about it. So at the end, I'm going to share something else about that with you. But it's considered in potassium and very low in calories. It's often paired with strawberries. That strawberry rhubarb pie is classic. My mother used to make a rhubarb sauce that we poured over it in the summertime, like all sugar. So what I'm going to do today is this little rhubarb scone. I wanted to do mead too with honey and rhubarb, but I didn't have enough of it growing out there. So maybe as it grows, because we just transplanted it over the weekend, so maybe as it grows more, I'll be able to bring you that later in the season. But so for today, I'm going to go with this bowl of flour, and all the recipes are going to be over on our YouTube channel, John and Heather Perfetto on YouTube. You can get the recipes with the final outcome of the products of what we do each day. So in this bowl, I have flour, sugar, baking powder, salt. If you don't want to use sugar, you can use Swerve. If you don't want to use flour, you can use almond flour. I don't have that here today to show. So the first thing I'm going to do is, to the dry ingredients, just blend them up a little bit. This is the salt, baking powder, sugar, flour, and I actually did half and half. I did half Swerve, half sugar. So sometimes if you don't want to go 100% Swerve, you could split it up half and half. Depends upon whether you're following a strict diet or you're just trying to cut back on sugar. And then that was cold, 8 tablespoons of cold butter, and this pastry cutter, which I decided isn't a pastry cutter, but it's what I'm going to do with it because that's what I have. So you cut the cold butter into the dough. And we talked about this before. To get the flaky dough, you use cold butter. You don't use your hands, because the temperature on your hands changes the texture of the dough. The rounded pastry cutters are better. This gets stuck in here. So I'm just going to switch it out and go with this fork to get it cut up and distributed in there. And then the next step in this recipe calls for buttermilk, which I didn't have. So I took a little bit of whole milk out of the fridge, and I mixed it with a 1/4 cup. So I have a 1/4 cup of milk, and I mixed it with a 1/4 cup of the sourdough starter that we have, and a tablespoon of sour cream. And that's what I'm going to add to this dough here. So the next thing that's going to go in is this, about a cup of chopped up raw rhubarb. Mix that in there. This is going to be a little afternoon tea scone. And then this here is the sourdough mix, the sour cream, and the milk to make buttermilk for me. So let's blend that up pretty well and see what that looks like. It should look like thick, chunky buttermilk, but sour cream will give you that tanginess that you find in buttermilk. The other thing you could go with on this, when I made the scones at the Four Seasons Hotel way back when, we used to use self-rising flour. So that's just something that's more in the South. We don't have a lot of that up here. I know you can get it at the store, but it's basically flour with a baking powder in it. So this is going to go in here to make it's like a biscuit dough, a scone. And I kept a little water on the side just in case that starter was a little drier than 100% milk. So this is just water. I'm going to add a little bit of water to make my dough form. And the thing about biscuits and scones is you don't want to over mix them. Wow, the smell of that starter. It's incredible in this. Did you smell that? The sourdough starter? You don't want to over mix them. Some places in the South will go right to the table with this biscuit mix and put it together, but I can't wash my hands in between, so I'm going to try to get my dough together in here. All right, so we're going to roll this out. There's going to be a hand washing portion of this event. Johnny, you'll have to entertain them while I wash my hands today. And then I'm just kind of folding it into a square. I'm not really kneading it. I'm getting the rest of the dough to come together here on the bench or the countertop. All right, and then when you have it in your square, you're going to roll it out. Well, this isn't going to get rolled out as thin as pie crust because it's going to be a biscuit or a scone.
It looks like about a half inch thick.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit more though, so hold on the math. But you could see that, I don't know if you could see it on the camera there, but I could see the chunks of cold butter that are in the dough here, 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 here. That is what's going to make this flaky and rise. So the next thing you do is you can take a biscuit cutter, any kind, whatever you have, dip it in a little bit of flour so it doesn't stick, and you're going to cut out your little scones. Okay. And I have just a parchment paper sheet pan. These are going to bake at 350 for about 15 minutes. I don't think we're going to get the finished product by the end of today's episode. I don't know. I have a few other things for you today, so maybe we will. All right, now I had more dough, so I'm just going to push this back together again. Again, I don't want to work it too much because I don't want my hands to warm up that butter, and I don't want to develop the gluten in the flour. And that's what's going to keep your scones and your biscuits fluffy. And so keep going. I'm going to run out of room on this pan. This would be a 2-batcher for me. All right, the next thing that you would do would be you would egg wash, and you could sugar these. I'm not going to. Classic Irish scones don't do that. Some of them use milk, some of them use cream. I'm just going to bake mine straight up like this. So put that off to the side. 350 oven, probably 15 minutes. We had an oven episode yesterday where I decided to make pulled pork in the kitchen, non-commercial kitchen, and I almost set my house on fire. Get off my hands. Can't go over that much.
All right.
Talk amongst yourselves. I gotta figure out the hand washing portion. I don't know how to. Sorry, nobody wants to watch me wash my hands. That's the most boring thing ever. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you is here. That's where you can go to. Is this tomato basil, fresh mozzarella tomato basil stuffed chicken. And so I'm going to show you how I put that together. That's going to be our dinner tonight. It's just chicken breast, and then I made a stuffing. And the recipe again is going to be over on our YouTube channel. But I basically just in olive oil sauteed onion, and then I put in fresh tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, Parmesan, basil, and breadcrumbs. And that's going to be put inside this chicken. So the other day I showed you this little trick of how to put plastic down on your board and then pound out your chicken. I use the flat side. I don't use this cube steak side because I don't really want to like beat the crap out of it. I just want to get it even all the way around. And then this has to cool. So you make this mixture and then it cools. And you're going to put it inside your chicken here like this. Just so. Okay. Now, I'm not going to touch this raw chicken. I have this piece of plastic here, and I'm going to roll it around like that. And then I'm going to set it in the pan, seam side down. I didn't touch that. I'm still washing my hands. That's just me. All right. So the next trick to this chicken is this mayonnaise. And you can see, look how much I have left. Just about enough. So I'm going to use this spatula to scrape it out. Now, if you had a full jar of mayonnaise and you use a spatula like this to rub this on here, on the outside of the chicken, don't go back in there with the raw chicken and the spatula, okay? Mine's empty, so it doesn't matter. But this is going to hold the breadcrumbs to the surface of the chicken, right here like this. A little bit of breadcrumbs. You can do breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese if you want, but I just have that. And then I'm going to put about half a cup of chicken stock in the bottom of this pan. And then I'm going to, this is a trick that we did in the restaurant a lot, is I'm going to use plastic and foil. Yep, plastic and foil. We used to make lasagna like this. So the plastic goes over first. This creates a nice tight seal. This also keeps, if you had anything acidic in here, like tomato sauce, from burning the foil. You know how it eats through the aluminum foil. So then aluminum foil. This recipe, I'm going to give you this later too. So this is going to go in the same oven now, but I'm probably going to turn it up after I take the biscuits out. So ideally this would be a 385 oven. I did it this morning for that one there. I did it 30 minutes covered, and then I uncovered it, and I did it for another 15 minutes. But a really good thing is to get one of these professional thermal digital thermometers, because this has to get to 165. And I think that purchasing this and having this in your arsenal will keep you from serving chicken and pork that is underdone and raw, which is not good for you, and from overcooking it, because you just want to make sure that you cook it enough. 165 is what you want to get to on internal temperature on that. So I'm going to throw that in the oven, and then you're going to come over this way. All right. With that, today I'm going to make, because John got this basil the other day at the store, I'm going to make my pesto recipe, sort of, because I don't have everything that I need to make it, but I do have this beautiful basil, and this amount of basil, which was like, not a little tiny bunch, it was a big package. What do you think?
Like $3.
A pound? How much do you think it weighed, though? It was
half a pound.
So probably like 4 bunches of basil, or if you had it out in your backyard. So I have about 2 cups of basil, and I also like to put, this is a trick, this baby spinach in here, because it just makes it a little bit brighter, keeps it brighter. So 2 cups of basil in there. You should use pine nuts. That's like the classic way of making pesto, but this is what I have, sunflower seeds, so that's about a cup of sunflower seeds. I'm also going to put, I'd say a cup, maybe a cup and a half of Parmesan cheese in there. 3 cloves of garlic, and then I have these lemons. Now, I don't want to get the seeds in here, so I have this little, how can we show this, because it's such a great trick. I'm a righty, but I'm going to go lefty. So I'm going to use this fork to get the juice out of the lemon, and this just is going to, the acidity, and this is really going to bring up the brightness in your pesto. How'd that, get that in the eye?
Yeah.
So I'd say about 1.5 lemons are going to go in here. And this will also keep it from oxidizing, but I'm not going to leave mine in the fridge. I like to make it and freeze it, so when I get a good batch, usually in the summertime I have basil growing out back, so I don't have to keep it in my refrigerator. I also want to mention that what I did, this was Thai basil too, by the way, was I peeled all those off the stems. You don't use the stems for that, but I'm going to show you a trick that I'm going to do with the stems too. Okay, so let's put this guy on. Oh, salt and pepper. A little salt and pepper goes in there too. Right. So I just take this in the Cuisinart, and then as it's spinning, this is really good extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to put a little bit of that in there, and I'm going to stop, scrape it down, and let it go again. This is a really good thing to have in your freezer for any Italian food, salad dressings, marinades. It stays a long time in the freezer. It's a good way to make sure that you don't ruin all that basil. Like if I had just left that in my refrigerator in 2 days, it would have been black and not usable. Now sometimes I just put this in little like salad souffle cups, but I have this little ice cube tray right here today. So I didn't, you should taste it. Make sure that you have enough salt in it. I've made it so many times. It's good. So I'm going to put this in this ice cube tray, and I'm going to freeze this. And then I'm going to pop them out, and I'm going to wrap them in little plastic cubes. And then I'll just be able to go, I'm going to make something, pull that out in the morning and throw it in the fridge the night before, or throw it on the counter for the day. You could use anything, and you don't have to use this. If you had a covered container, you could put it in a little covered container. And I'm going to save just this much because I want to do something over here with that. So I'm going to save a little bit of that. So I'm going to make a sauce later for the chicken over here. So that's kind of why you got this recipe today, because I'm making this for the chicken. I might need a little bit more. Alright, so that down. This guy's going to go in the freezer, and then later when they're frozen, I'm going to be able to pop these out and wrap them up, or just leave it in here. If you have room for it, just leave it in there. It's not a big deal. All right, so what do I do with these stems that I have? And I'll tell you what I do. I have this beautiful extra virgin olive oil that my neighbor brought me from Italy, and I've coveted it. It's not allowed to be used in everything. But instead of throwing these stems out, even though the chickens will eat the basil stems, I have this olive oil in the back pot back here, and it's not boiling, it's not hot smoking. I'm just going to throw those stems in there, and I'm going to throw these garlic cloves in there, and this is going to make me a seasoned oil that I can use now for sauteing vegetables or putting over steamed vegetables or cooking chicken, making pasta. You could once this cooks, I'm going to take out the garlic cloves, and I'm going to take out the stems, and I'm going to have this beautiful seasoned garlic basil oil. It smells good. Again, you could throw crushed red pepper flakes in that. You could put regular pepper in that. And then you're going to strain this off, and you're going to have on your counter a little oil that you can cook with. So with this pesto right here, this was my pan that I cooked that first chicken in. So I'm just going to finish deglazing it, getting the good seasoning off the bottom of this pan that chicken cooked in. You're going to have this left over from the chicken stock that you made. And I'm going to get all that flavor out of there. And I'm going to put it in here with this pesto and cook it down. You could add heavy cream to this, but you really don't have to. There's a lot of flavor in that. And then we just made this beautiful bright pesto. So I'm going to let that come to a boil. Put a little black pepper in that. I'm going to grab my chicken back here. Let it reduce a little bit, at least come to a boil. You could put white wine in this if you had any extra white wine. And again, that chicken stock that I was using, like I told you before, whenever I'm cooking, I save the ends of chicken and vegetables, and I have this beautiful stock all the time to work with. So I'll let that cook a little bit. What I have today is Who Knew Wednesday, and this is going to bring me back to my original rhubarb leaf, because the chemical that's in this toxic rhubarb leaf is called oxalic acid. I didn't say that right. Oxalic acid. And it's really funny because this is a product that is used, I don't know if you can get in on that really tight. This is a product that is used to treat varroa mites in my beehives. And it's from the rhubarb plant. And then they also make this paint out of the same acid. It's like a bleach that they put on the hives, the outside of the hives, to protect against varroa mites, which is one of the leading causes for why our bees are collapsing. So who knew Wednesday? There's always a fact out there somewhere. You get up, you have a little extra time, you do some research, you might make a connection like that on something that interests you as well. So this I thickened up a little bit, and I'm just going to pour it right over this beautiful chicken that we have here. And that was just a sauce that we made from what we had to go with our fresh mozzarella, tomato basil stuffed chicken. And with that, John has a lovely Italian restaurant for you.
All right, today, River Street. Mike over on River Street in downtown across from the post office. He's been there forever. I used to run into Mike over at the depot all the time, and we'd stand in those long lines and solve all the world's problems. He's a great guy, hard worker, to say the least, like all the restaurant workers. Doing curbside, I'm sure he can't wait to get open again, but
Call him up. Check out the Facebook.
Yeah, check out his Facebook page. He's got a website. Definitely deserves some consideration. So, River Street, downtown. Check them out. Thanks.
All right, that's what I have for you today. Tomorrow, I'm a little undecided as to what I'm going to make. I might show you how to break down a whole chicken tomorrow because that's
Caesar
an
dressing
event in itself, and maybe make some Caesar dressing. So I'll show you how to take a whole chicken and break it down into its components and maybe make a quick Caesar salad, authentic Caesar salad dressing. But that's what I have for today. I hope you guys enjoy these recipes. If you make any of these things, go ahead. Feel free to post them on there. Hop over to our YouTube, subscribe, give us likes. Let us know what you think. Whether it's negative or positive, I hope it's positive. There's no reason to leave a negative comment in this. I'm not a professional. I'm a professional chef. I'm just doing what I can to try and entertain you all. So that's what I have until we eat again.